well, here for reaction, Republican Senate candidate in Nevada and former Attorney General in his state, Adam Laxalt, along with Arizona Senate candidate Mark Brnovich, who is the current Attorney General of the Grand Canyon State. Gentlemen, welcome aboard. Let me start with you, Adam, if I could. You know, when I hear this is what we see this, people complain that these things keep happening. There's never any change. Part of it is because all this political rhetoric sucks all the air out of the room. Nobody gets to the, I suppose, more boring solutions like school safety, doors, hardening those targets. And you can't raise money on that necessarily. And so we go from one to the other with these people who've been in Washington for 50 years, and then they still complain about it. Well, how do you see this playing out when everyone still returns to legislation, politics, blaming, et cetera?
People want leadership, and for President Biden to rush to the cameras that night without the full information and once again blame 100 million law-abiding gun owners is an absolute disgrace. People want to know why we can't fix these things because Washington trots out the same attacks over and over. We looked at this when I was Attorney General. We met with law enforcement, and the exact same solutions you're hearing today, we proposed a few years ago. Every time you see a breakdown in communication, you usually see that the school and the local law enforcement did not have proper training. They didn't have a shooter response. You don't have single entrance. And you need to make sure that the classroom doors actually close. We have been asking for armed guards in schools for a very long time. It's Democrats that refuse to allow that. And so this is a tired deal, and I hope that Americans will reject this because this is not going to protect our kids. We need real solutions, and we need them now.
It's understandable, Mark. We're understandably emotional. We understandably want major solutions. We want things that are going to make a difference. And yet we do notice that it's almost as though some problems the politicians don't want to have go away, right? We also know that we can have these ideas, but they also have to be implemented, right? You can throw money at a problem, have these strategies, but if people don't implement them properly, we have an issue. And if we, like with that man that ran from the barbers with the barber's rifle in order to make a difference, those would be the guns that would be gone, that we would be relying on just the police. And we've seen in this particular instance what happens when you're relying just on the police with the firearms.
Yeah, Tammy, all of our hearts broke when we saw this story. I know that many of us have been praying for comfort for the families and praying for peace in our community and our world. And I think one of the things we're not talking enough about is what has happened in this country in the last 30 years, that this evilness that's kind of perpetuating to younger and younger kids, and whether it's the effect of the media or video games, it is having an impact. And at the end of the day, the Biden administration, the Democrats are trying to politicize this issue. But if more gun laws worked, Chicago would be the safest city in America. And we know that there are places like your previous guest was talking about in Israel. If you go to places like Sderot, where I have been, that border Gaza, every single one of the members of that community is armed because of the worry of terrorist attacks. They harden targets. And we know here in America, we guard our banks, we guard our money, we guard casinos. With armed security, and yet what are we doing to arm our most precious resource, our children? And that's why local communities need to come up with solutions that include, making sure doors are locked, making sure that we have the proper security in those classrooms, including police officers.
Adam, it's interesting. A lot of people did pull out of the NRA conference, and there's a thing called projected identity, where one side projects, we know about projection in general, but projects an accusation about who someone else is. And if you hear it enough, that someone else adopts the false projected identity. And I see conservatives doing this on issues of morality, on issues of who they are and what matters. If you hear you're a racist long enough, maybe you'll begin to believe it. People pulled out of the NRA convention when, in fact, it is American citizens who are members that's the lobby. And it's a continual kind of libeling of the average American citizen when this is exactly where we go each time.
This is a time for courage, not a time to back down when the media, when the Democrats, when Hollywood, when professional sports franchises, when they go all in on something, you better believe they're wrong on the issue. Our voters and Americans want us to stand up for them. They are the voiceless. And so we went through this with the BLM too. You know, as a former top cop, to watch Republicans not stand up against the BLM riots, to not stand up and defend law enforcement. It took weeks before they thought it was safe enough to go out and defend these institutions. We need people out there today, right now, and those that did speak today, like Senator Cruz and President Trump, you know, God bless them, because it's the law-abiding citizens that deserve to be respected, that deserve to be spoken for. And guess what? In the last few years, a lot more people have understood that self-defense is paramount in our community, and we need more defense for our schools, not less.
Yes, and law enforcement, the police clearly have been under fire, have been denigrated. You can understand how that's depressing, has an impact on their sense of self, and also the desire to become law enforcement. All of this has to change as Biden is attacking law enforcement again, and as they're saying they want to take firearms away from law-abiding citizens. Everything they do, gentlemen, makes everything worse, and this is no different. Adam and Mark, thank you very much. Now, while the Biden administration